those of you who follow me are generally interested in pretty similar stuff to what I am. And so I thought this would be a pretty interesting quick video that I could record. I got 3 bits of news that you may already know about, but there's chances that you may not. There may be somebody stumbling across my channel from this video and may be like, hey, there's something that interests me and I didn't know about prior. So thought I'd record this quickly. But yeah, 3 bits of information. 1, news on the release of, I guess, the open beta for Gaea, 2.0 that is, coming incredibly soon. We've got news about Jangafx and what they're planning to do, mostly intertwining in regards to the quarterly, I guess, recording that they usually do. They usually do a quarterly, bi-quarterly live stream, sorry. So the Q2 live stream that would usually be happening will be coming relatively soon from what I understand, and I got a bit of information on that, as well as some Adobe information, as that's a pretty big bit of information that may interest people. So yeah, so starting off in regards to the Gaea 2.0 release, I'm going to be talking about, the open beta release is supposedly going to be releasing the 19th of June. So it is currently the 18th of June right now as of me recording in, this New Zealand time. But yeah, so potentially not tomorrow, at least for me, but the following day. And I don't know what you guys are on. Some people may also be on the 18th, considering it's quite late in the day for me. But also there's probably still some people in the 17th. So I'll just say maybe like 2 or so days it's going to be releasing. Supposedly. I've been reading up about it. Apparently it was talked about on the Instagram of Quad Spinner. I missed that. I don't know. I must have not seen it. But yeah, long story short, it must have been like one of those, I think, stories is what it's called, right? Instagram stories. I don't use Instagram that much, so yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, ultimately it must have been a story or something that it is going to be coming out on the 19th of June. Don't quote me on that. That is quoting people who are quoting Quad Spinner. So could be wrong about that. Probably right, considering they're quoting Quad Spinner. But anyway, that's that. On more definite information, I have next with us about Jangafx and, well, yeah, what they're doing. So, I mean, if you follow Jangafx, you probably know about a lot of this already, as there's not hidden information, really. I've been talking about it as well, but if you're in the Discord, you probably know about it, and supposedly they sent an email. I must have missed that, but we're going to change screens right now. So, as you can see here, Nick Sievert on the Discord, I've just taken a picture here, screen grab, just to make it easier to see, but he mentioned that he sent out an email. I, for some reason, didn't get this email. I re-signed up for the newsletter, just in case I'm missing, stuff, but I'm not too sure why I didn't receive this email. It might have been sent to my spam. I should check my spam folder. I haven't marked it as that, though. And I get most of their emails, but for some reason missed this. Regardless, for anybody who isn't signed up and also didn't receive it, Jangafx Q2 update, what are they up to? They're working on, realistically, Embergen, Geogen, and Liquigen. They got some pretty big updates coming. So they've been talking about the scriptable API for quite a while. They've asked what coding languages people would like, and a lot of stuff in regards to all these. So looks like they're planning on implementing maybe the API, or at least talking about it with the update that they're going to be, releasing. I believe the update's going to be next month. Usually, looking at some of the past live streams, I've been doing it this month, at the end of this month. But they've been talking about, next month, we've got next month. Okay, well, I think it's safe to assume that probably next month this is going to be when they do all this chat. But yeah, so maybe scripting a scriptable API. It's not something necessarily for me, but for when it comes to actual people who are doing this professionally. This is probably going to be a pretty big change and hopefully really helpful for you guys. So that's great. Embergen. We've known about this for a while now, and it's really awesome to see that they are going to be implementing this, a movable and parentable domains. Well, I didn't know about parentable, but at least movable, but I guess parentable does, coincide with it as well. So this is going to mean that if you have a moving object, now you can, I guess, parent the domain to that object. So let's say you're doing maybe a meteor or something like that. Meteor, meteorite, those sorts of things. You can have the domain and it's probably just going to follow it. So if you have it moving in physical space, you're going to be able to parent it to that. And hopefully, it'll just be working like that. It could work with maybe cars and stuff and a couple other things, characters even. Which is actually going to be a really major change because for those of you who may not know, a pretty key thing for when you're trying to do these big sequences with lots of movement is you're going to have to expand your domain to a lot more than is really required. Whereas this is going to be a key method in, I guess, restricting the domain into what is required. Yes, if you're doing, for example, a walking character, you can have the character just walk on the spot, right? As you'd probably generally do for games anyway. Otherwise, for cars, you could have the car move, but on the spot. It's not going to look as good, and you're going to cause some issues when it comes to the, the volume not moving and stuff. But in some instances, that could be a method that is usable, especially when it comes to meteors and maybe a bull that's throwing, right? You can move all that and have the trail following, and if you get it right, it can generally look pretty good. But otherwise, the alternative is have a massive domain and still move the thing physically, but then you got the domain to do that. But at that, the cost of that is needing a heap of VRAM and a heap of processing power, and at that point, you're unable to do stuff like upscaling and whatnot due to, well, you're not restricted to not being able to do upscaling, but upscaling does require quite a lot of processing power, and I would assume for a lot of those bigger ones, most people won't be able to run, massive domains with upscaling, unless you got a pretty damn beefy PC. So that's going to be great. We got GeoGen, we got spline tools, more realistic noise options, and sparse tiles. I'm going to be assuming that the sparse tiles is just you can, I guess, render portions of the part out to have one larger, bigger thing once you combine it. That would be my assumption. It could also be something like stamping, maybe they're talking about, so you can just stamp bits of things on. But I would assume it's the first thing I mentioned, where it's just going to be, normal, you're rendering it out onto multiple different images and then you can combine it. But yeah, that's something that coincides with what Gaea is definitely doing and has been doing for a while, and that's going to be an amazing thing because that's going to make it more available for doing these massive scenes. More realistic noise options. I think that is a very key update in my opinion. I really enjoy GeoGen, but I would say compared to programs that have been released for quite a while, I'd say GeoGen is missing some of those more realistic noise patterns and options as well. So this is not to say that you can't create realistic things, and if you've seen my tutorials, I would argue that maybe they're not the most realistic and they're mostly pretty simple stuff, but it is still pretty easy to get a pretty good looking result, at least. And I've definitely seen some people come out with some stuff that does look quite realistic as well, so, it's completely up to your skills and abilities with the program. But some noise options that maybe are more realistic and a lot more streamlined would be completely beneficial and amazing. And probably a really massive step up when it comes to making this an even better product than it is already. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what that entails, really, and I'm hoping that's a big step up from what they have already, as at the moment it's really, really good. But I think, increasing the noise patterns and options and stuff like that are included is going to be a pretty major thing. But because yeah, a lot of the other tools at the moment have a heap of noises, and that's because they've been obviously out for an incredibly long time. Well, not incredibly, but you know what I mean. Like in times of releases, I mean we're still in the alpha version, right? So the GeoGen. So going to be awesome. That's going to be a major thing for me, and I'm looking forward to seeing what that is. And hopefully you can expect to see some tutorials from me, or at least some videos covering those. And lastly, when it comes to spline tools, I'm a bit intrigued in what that could entail, because that could be a lot of things. Is that going to be a way to splines for when it comes to masks? Or is that going to be splines in terms of like making objects, in terms of making, for example, like maybe a stream or a river? Or is that going to be, could you make roads? Like there's a lot that you can do with splines, but I'm intrigued to know the implementation and what they kind of do with it. As if it's a mask, you can do quite a lot with it. Whereas if it might be maybe something that culls part of the terrain, and that could be something interesting, albeit that could be part of what, you know, that would be part of what a mask could do, but it sort of depends. Is this going to be like a 3D spline, a 2D spline? And that's where it's as like a height map, and then you can like draw objects and make your own height map with that. Because I believe, I talked about this in the video that isn't released yet, but they did apparently originally have like you can draw your own masks and then remove that. They removed that, sorry, because it just wasn't working. I can't remember what the issue was, but maybe this is their new implementation of it. Not too sure. Intrigued to see what that's going to entail. Lastly, we've got LiquidGen, and that's going to involve surface tension, whitewater, and optimized rendering, among maybe, these may, you know, entail other things, but this is at least what they have mentioned. And ultimately, if this is all that is with the new update, there's going to be a crazy new update for a lot of tools. So yeah, but we've got surface tension, whitewater, and optimized rendering. Optimized rendering is going to be a pretty key thing. The rendering is really quick, and for a lot of their tools is really, really good. But I think when path tracing, it is a little bit on this, not on the slower end. I think compared to other path tracers, it's incredibly quick. But I think it would be great to having an optimized rendering, and hopefully that entails a more optimized viewport as well when it comes to path tracing. Ultimately, you can just use raster viewing and then switch to path tracing for render. Actually, that leads an interesting thing. Something that would be interesting for me would be having an option for when rendering, an option to turn on the path tracer, so the viewport is separate to what is being rendered. I'm not too sure. I can't make these choices, of course, because you know, I don't know what's going on behind the hood, right? So there might be a reason, maybe when rendering they just render the viewport and, you know, do their fancy stuff. But at the same time, if you have done a bit of rendering in at least the Jangafx software, you may know that having an increased detail viewport while rendering does take a bit more of a hit, and that can entail, like, you know, making the viewport smaller and stuff like that. If you do that that often, can give you better results. So I think if you could have like a toggle for the render to have its own path tracer, while the viewport is sticking with a raster rendering method, that would be pretty interesting in terms of maybe saving a bit of performance. I'm not too sure. There's probably ways of doing it that I am not thinking of, but I don't know. Maybe that's already implemented, and I gotta be honest, I haven't done too much in other programs for a while recently. Just for a while. Ultimately, because I've been pretty stuck when it comes to a lot of assessments, which we're going to be pretty much done with that, hopefully, by the end of this week. And then I got a week extension for one thing. Got to make a character, which is going to be a bit of a pain. But yeah. Whitewater. This is like... These two are like two of some of the most sought after features, I guess, that I've seen for LiquidGen. So this is a humongous update in terms of, I guess, Liquigen's usability. And so I think if we have a... I mean, even with these, you're pretty much able to do... Not everything, of course, and there's still quite a lot that is missing for it to be like a fully fleshed out program. But I think when it comes to... Once Whitewater and Surface Tension's at least added, I think it's going to be a very heavy contender. As Whitewater, hopefully that entails like bubbles and a lot of those sorts of things. I would assume so, right? Like that's generally what Whitewater is, really. But also when it comes to the surface tension, that's going to be pretty good. That's going to be pretty. I think that's a key thing because at the moment, I'm just trying to think. In terms of, I think I've seen a bit of feedback about, and at least in my own experience, working with like custom collisions can cause some issues of like particles leaking through and kind of acting a little bit crazy. As well as doing stuff like simulations like a water droplet going into water. And I'm just trying to think, like, I feel like surface tension is going to be a pretty key factor in making it completely usable in regards to, I guess, a professional level. As surface tension is a pretty major factor when it comes to making a lot of desired results, right? So I think when it comes to all these being added, I think there's going to be a pretty major thing. I mean, this is pretty crazy because you got to understand that this is one team, and they've added stuff for Embergen, Geogen, and Liquigen all together. And it is like I don't know how many people. I'd assume there's around 20 guys working on this. So that's a pretty big thing, as well as their own software that Nick hinted at getting released. A new software as well. Oh, there's a couple bit of new software that they're, I believe, looking at working on in the future. But there's another one that apparently I would assume might be talked about this upcoming, I guess, video. So live stream. Sorry. So that could be interesting. They also talk about something about this Elemental Week. Not too sure what Elemental Week would be. They do say, you know, what the heck is it? Feel free to speculate. Obviously not going to talk about... They're not going to say what it is until, obviously, that is. But I think it might be something... Maybe they do something like a competition, right? A competition that is like, hey, you know, use your software... use our software, sorry. Or maybe you don't have to use their software, but it's like a competition. Try to make something incorporating... different elements, you know, like an ultimate just VFX competition, or it might be like, maybe it might be, you know, try to make a video, right, like a little, I'm just trying to think, like, have any, I don't know if any of you guys have seen the Punisher competitions, but I'm thinking maybe something like that, where it's like, yeah, you need to maybe have, you know, liquid and fire, volume, and obviously terrain, like for I don't know what it'd be, dirt, or rock. I don't know. What is it? It's usually water, fire, air, which can kind of fit within. That can kind of fit within obviously Embergen, and then you've got rock or dirt, or I don't know what that's generally referred to as, but I think that's going to be pretty interesting. That would be my guess. Otherwise, it might be just try to make a simulation with just one element. But I guess considering Elemental Week, it's probably, if they were to do something like that, then that would be probably a thing together. And maybe there's like, you know, something that people can win. That's my speculation. That's my guess. That could be completely wrong. I saw some other people guessing some other stuff. So I'm not too sure, but I think that's a pretty interesting guess. I think there could be a couple other things that could be. Somebody said something about, oh, does this maybe mean that they're hinting at like combining the software? I don't think so. They've also said that they have no interest in combining the software, as well as it just not really working. But they... Oh, one thing I do have to remember to say before I forget is they were going to rework the website, the Jangafx website. So there is a potential chance that they might have like a not third party, sorry, that's not the word that I'm looking for. Similar to how you have the Adobe Creative Cloud, or like the Maxon, I guess, store thingy that you can download. I'm not too sure if I have anything here. Something similar, I guess, to like the NVIDIA app, where like you can download and it's got different versions of their software. Maybe it might be like a little app thing, and then I guess everything is worked via that instead of a website or through Discord that they sometimes do. That could be something interesting that might be part of it. I don't know. Ultimately, my guess is going to be that challenge, but I don't know. That could be what they're meaning. I don't know. But yeah, that's my idea, and I think that's a great way. I've seen them constantly pushing to, I guess, incorporate the community with things recently. I mean, obviously, it's been quite great when it comes to the Discord community, but also in regards to was it Ben Harker? Sorry, I'm gonna pause and double check. Sorry, it was Ben Harker. Who's been working on the tutorials for Django for a decent bit now. I think a bit of this year. So that's been pretty great. Love seeing his stuff that he's been uploading. I'm going to have to go for a full deep dive into a lot of what he's been working, because obviously I haven't had too much time free. But a lot of the tutorials that he's been working on have looked really, really awesome from the brief glimpses that I've seen, as well as that magical one that he's redone, which was one of my favorite tutorials. I think the two big tutorials that I really liked was the tornado. There was like a dust tornado. This was like old tutorials that they worked on pre 1.0, as well as the magical kind of cloud thing. I can re-bring it back up again. This one here, which looks really cool. So he remade that and obviously added some interesting new stuff to it as well, which looks really, really awesome. So, if you guys haven't seen it and you're interested, please, please, please check out some of this new content that he's been working on, because this is amazing. And I would a lot of it, from what I've seen, it does cover a lot of what Imogen entails. So if you are intrigued on new interesting things, do check that out. But yeah, the next topic that I want to talk about, and the final topic, I know this is quite a long video. I was wanting to keep it 5 minutes, but I think, going and deep diving into really what they could be working on and having a little bit of a discussion on it is pretty beneficial, and probably provides a bit more than just stating what they've written. But yeah, we've got the US sues Adobe for deceiving subscriptions that are too hard to cancel. This is something that means a lot to me. So yeah, ultimately there has been a bit of a chat in regards to Adobe recently, where Adobe has obviously been doing some questionable terms of service things, which I've decided to try and move myself further and further away from Adobe now, due to me being at university, and university providing a lot of Adobe tools. I'm luckily in the situation where I'm not really directly paying for Adobe tools, so I'm kind of out of all this, as well as, unfortunately, a lot of tools we do have to use. Well, not really have to use Adobe, but they teach Adobe related tools, so you are doing a lot of self-directed learning if you're going to be using your own tools for that. But I have made the push to use Affinity, to buy and use Affinity related software. So I've been utilizing Affinity Photo and a bit of Designer recently. So if anybody is interested, there was a sale for Affinity related products. So do check that out if you are interested in an alternative to Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign. Obviously, there's always DaVinci Resolve when it comes to videos, and when it comes to Substance software. I mean, it's a bit of a tricky one. A heap of the industry uses Substance. And I mean, ultimately, if you want a quick fix for the Adobe Substance related stuff, you can buy them on Steam, which is where I get my stuff from. There was no notification, no terms of service that I had to sign for the Steam related stuff. It's part because you can run this offline, I believe. There's no link back to the Adobe stuff, so really the changes in terms of service I don't believe really hits us, at least in that regard. Yes, if they change the terms of service, you still have to sign it and do all that yada yada, but they will not have access to the content that you make because you're not constantly being linked up to the cloud and stuff like that. So the stuff that we lose when buying it through here, the pros, if you don't know, are the fact that you own it perpetually as opposed to paying the subscription, and it is technically a little bit cheaper depending on if you're trying to buy all of them or just a singular bit of software. So if you're only after, for example, Painter, then it's going to be significantly cheaper for me, costing 289 New Zealand, which is, I think, around maybe 180, 200 USD. So for anybody who is interested, that is cheaper on a yearly basis than buying the Substance stuff. But yeah, ultimately, if that is the case, then this is going to be a pretty big thing to purchase. Otherwise, you have alternatives such as Marmoset, you have alternatives such as Armor Paint, Instamat, Quixel, albeit Quixel doesn't really get any updates from what I've seen for quite a while as well. Designer alternatives also being Instamat, and hopefully something Jangafx related. I do believe there was something else that was trying to push towards an alternative for Designer. I can't remember off the top of my head, and I don't think I'm going to be able to find it when I look for it, because I just simply do not remember. But I believe there's a bit more coming out to push that Designer-related stuff. And obviously in terms of the other tools, you've got Sampler, which is a bit tricky, but I think it's Matte. I believe I have it. Matte? I can't remember. It's like Matt, I'll see if I can quickly find it. Sorry for the wait. Well, I mean, you didn't have to sit through it, but Material Maker is, I guess, the alternative that I've seen when it comes to, I guess, both Designer, but also Sampler. I believe it can do a lot of what Sampler does, but also being a pretty good alternative when it comes to Sampler. And then Stager, you obviously got Marmoset, you got Sketchfab, you got a couple other tools that are good for that. I think even Blender Eevee is a pretty good alternative depending on what you're after for that. So yeah, but that is not what we're here to talk about. We're here to ultimately talk about, I thought I'd bring that up just for anybody who is interested and wants some alternatives, but ultimately we are here to talk about the, well, Adobe getting sued for deceiving subscriptions. And now, so this relates back to me, personally. I find it easy to talk about subjects that I know a bit about. When I tried cancelling my subscription, it was rolling over, and I was going to be paying quite a bit of money. I decided I do not want to be paying for this. I'm going to cancel it. And this was not long after it rolled over. This was less than a month. This was probably a couple days after it rolled over. I was just like, hey, let's cancel this. 300 Australian dollars, because it only does Australian. That's a lot of money, way too much. That is like the year's, I guess, amount that I'd be paying. I talked to support. I'm like, this is stupid. You shouldn't be, charging people money just to cancel. They're like, I bet we'll take the money off. You don't got to pay it. But next time, make sure to yada yada. And I'm just like, I mean, this is stupid. I believe there is like a specific option that you can do that costs more, but you're not going to run into this. Or you could just pay monthly, and there's that option. But ultimately, that's stupid. I do think there should at least be I guess, a period in which it is, in quotation, rolling over. So you've got about, like, maybe let's just say a month to cancel before they were to continue this, because I think a month is plenty of time to decide whether or not you're going to be still purchasing, or even 2 weeks. as that wasn't an option, at least when I got hit with this issue. But ultimately, it is completely stupid. I do believe it is deserved them being sued for this. The fact that you have to pay money to opt out of a renewal, I guess, or once I guess having to pay the rest of the year, that just seems a bit stupid, incredibly predatory. You name a single other software that does that. I may not be aware of it, but I cannot think of any other software that does that. It's completely unnecessary, and that leaves a fucking sour taste in, you know, your mouth when you get hit with that stupid shit, when you're just like, I don't have, like, you know, let's just say, like, for me, the reason I was opting out of it is because I wasn't making enough money to be able to afford it, as well as it not really being a great option, as I was already paying for it via school, so the fact that I was going to have to pay an extra $300 when I was already paying through it via my school, as well as the fact that I did not have enough money to be able to afford paying the year regardless. How the fuck was I supposed to pull $300 out of my ass for it? It just seems completely just stupid and unnecessary. I don't know why they thought it's... I mean, it's obviously just because, like, we can grab some money from these guys. We can fool them, trick them. Completely terrible. I think this is one of the worst business practices I've seen, in at least the 3D space. And I think it's fucking terrible, and I'm glad they're getting sued for this, because they ultimately do deserve it. The idea of this existing is fucking stupid. It should never have existed in the first place. So ultimately, completely deserved. Is anybody surprised? No. I'm just glad that somebody's really doing some action towards it, and I hope that it goes towards they win this sue for this. As ultimately, I think everyone can agree that this is ultimately terrible, and this just needs to be abolished like as soon as possible. Because nobody wants to get fucked around in this regard. So ultimately, hopefully they do. I haven't read through all of this, but it does seem to be a pretty big... I mean, we got quite the documents and shit going on here. So ultimately, Adobe is getting pretty big for its shoes, and I think everybody can agree that ultimately there's a lot of shit decisions coming out of Adobe. It's not to say that there's not some good stuff that comes out of Adobe, and it's not to say that a lot of the people that work for Adobe are bad people, but a lot of the higher-ups are making shit decisions, and I don't think anybody can agree. Same when it comes to game studios. You can't really blame the people working on it, can only blame the people that make the decisions. So yeah, ultimately, terrible. I hope they change this. But on the plus side, we did get some interesting information about Quad Spinner Gaea 2.0, and we got some interesting information about Jangafx. Hope you like this video. I need to do a little bit of editing to cut some stuff out, but ultimately, this is pretty interesting bit of news. Sorry for a 30-minute video. Maybe it gets cut down a little bit. Probably still going to be about 30 minutes anyway. But yeah, hope this was interesting. Flick me a message in the replies if you've got anything interesting that you want me to talk about or that you want to inform me about. Let me know your thoughts on these things. Do you have any ideas on what Elemental Week could be in regards to Jangafx? Are you looking forward to Quad Spinner Gaea 2.0 and being able to access that? Do you have any thoughts? Have you run into the same situation when it comes to the whole Adobe cancellation? Have you moved and switched away from the Adobe suite and moved on to a different thing like Affinity like me, or Critter, or Clip Studio and other software like that? Just let me know. Feel free. Great. I'd be interested in having a discussion in the comments. But yeah, thank you guys all for watching. You guys have a lovely time, and we'll catch you next time. Have a good one. Bye bye.